Do we as Christians support policies that conflict with a biblical worldview? How would we even know? We claim to follow Jesus, yet how often do we evaluate our politics through his teachings? Do our views align with the Golden Rule, or are they shaped by worldly norms? A biblical world view should guide how we think about criminal justice, education, immigration, and more. Yet, are we critically and biblically engaging these issues? Or are we missing contradictions and consequences because we're unwilling to discuss them? Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers." Peacemaking isn't easy. It means stepping into conflict, not avoiding it, and risking discomfort to seek harmony. That's the good life, according to Jesus, not isolation, power plays, or apathy. So, how does this shape our approach to contentious topics today? Let's explore this and more on the Just a Thinker podcast. I'm your host, Bryan Bootka. Dr. Wakefield, thanks for spending some time with us today on the Just a Thinker podcast. I look forward to learning more about really your work, but it's your ministry, right? It looks like you started, or the idea for Restoration Ranch, Texas, happened in 2012. And did it start that same time? Was that the year you began just the process, or is that when you were able to start working in this particular work that you were doing with women in some sort of crisis, right? From 18 to age 65, maybe it's addiction, they've been incarcerated. There's been something significantly disruptive, right? Tragic potentially happen in their life. I also note that you work with those who've been victims of sex trafficking. So all kinds of really difficult, painful situations, which is you're doing the Lord's work. But your website mentions it started in that heart and mind in 2012. But when from there did it begin where it's at now?
Well, first of all, it's kind of a long story, and I'll try to get
that's okay. Long is good.
Version. But thank you, Bryan, so much for having me here today on Just a Thinker. And I love the title because thinking is a big part of prayer and doing and being careful and also putting forth action. So I like it. Caught my attention when I was looking on, I guess I don't know exactly where it caught my eye, but I reached out to you because you said, "Hey, if you'd like to be on my show." And I'm like, I would love to be on that kind of show. So thank you so much for having me here and letting me share a little bit about the Lord's ministry, Restoration Ranch, Texas. And we are here in the Central Texas area outside of Austin. And yes, the idea, or really the instance, happened in 2012. I had just left the for-profit world and in corporate relocation and was called to full-time ministry at my home church, which I'm still part of in Austin, and was working really a total immersive kind of situation where I'd always served voluntarily with women. But this was a different place and time where I'd been called to full-time ministry and was on staff at my church. And I would receive the people that others did not want to speak with at the time. And so I came in contact with a woman who was really in distress, big time. And when I went to ask others for help that were a little more experienced, I did not get much of a response, meaning there was a referral sheet, which is kind of the norm. And this was beyond the normal 5 pounds of bread and, flour and sugar and a can of beans. This was somebody that was suicidal. And so after 2 hours of just listening and trying to empathize with her and talk with her, she left. And I knew I had just failed her completely. And it broke my heart. And I just being, kind of just where if there's a problem, I want to try to fix it. And so I thought I need to learn how to do this better. So I prayed about it a lot. And the Lord led me to seminary. And it was just going to be a lay person's course. But then for the next 9.5 years, God immersed me into training at seminary. And so then after I prayed, there was an idea that just came upon my heart about, the Lord providing a spacious place for women and helping them because he loves them. And that's out of the Psalms. And so it was a big idea. And I thought, I don't have any land and I don't have any hills or cows or anything like that. And just wrote it out and prayed about it and put it away but kept thinking about it. And really in 2016, the Lord brought someone really special alongside me that really knew how to articulate that vision
Hmm.
on paper. And so that's when we began to form, was in 2016. And so we were successful with that. By 2018, we had a board, had been fundraising, had our mission and our bylaws down and all those really necessary infrastructure. And we've been rolling ever since. COVID put us back a little bit, but we didn't see too much of a slowdown other than just the housing part of it. And so ever since then, we've been moving at God's pace and trying to keep up with Him. We were still fundraising, we were still getting the word out, and we were waiting on our housing. That was the one big delay as far as our residential program. And so we are situated outside of Austin on an educational farm, and that's our temporary site right now. But we opened our residential program in December of 2023. So since that time, we have had 11 students. We were able to receive a donated manufactured home, which was lovely. They made great strides since I was a kid and lived in one.
I remember,
They're
I'm sure they're
beautiful.
much different today. We did too when I
Absolutely.
was in middle school. Yes, it was
Yes.
a long time ago.
And
They're
so
different now. That's
very
great.
generous, one of our board members has allowed us to just stake a claim on part of his property. And so that is our temporary site. And we opened up in December of 2023. And since that time, we have worked in residence with, we call our ladies students, because our model is to try to learn something new every day. Jesus was a teacher, and discipleship is about teaching and modeling and walking alongside. And so that's the model that we present to those that come to us. And so we've been able to have 11 students in residence. We had one successful graduation, our first one in January of this year. I'm very excited about that. We have others in residence right now. We're able to house up to 6 students at one time. And the more exciting news is that just in a very short amount of time in 2024, the Lord answered a huge prayer for me, for our ministry, and for the ministry, that the Lord would bring just a very special person that cared about the same kind of ministry that we had, and would come alongside us and find us and have really a substantial bank account to help us. And that happened in June of 2024. And so since that time, the Lord has kept me very busy, and we are now have the plans drawn. They have the plans drawn and a team put together to build the brand new women's discipleship house in Florence, which will probably be ready for us to move in by the end of this year. So we will be able to have 7 students if we want, and with a live-in staff, and then room for either a visiting intern, which is part of our plan as well, or even a guest missionary. And it's on acreage. The acreage is already purchased, and we're going to be able to have small, not a whole lot of animals, but some, and part of our program is the students plan their own meals and their menus along with our nursing staff. Mm-hmm. Some of them have very significant health issues when they come. And so that's part of the stabilization that we try to give is in their diet, and they may either need to lose weight or gain weight. And so sustainability and planting herbs and vegetables and using that in the daily menu along with eggs and chickens and taking care of all that just helps build responsibility. And we'll have bees, and so we'll get into all of that. But we're very excited about what God has done, and I'm just completely blown away and humbled by it. It's just, I still wake up every day and think, did that just happen? And so we're very excited, and we have a great team around us, and our board, I'm going to have a meeting with them tonight actually to nail down some details about breaking ground this month. The construction team is ready to go. So we're just in awe of all that he has done.
That's fantastic. So I think you said you could have up to 6 currently. Is that, and how many students do you currently have?
We have just under that right now. And so we have some room to receive. We're constantly, on a regular basis, let me say that's a little more accurate, talking to potential students, some that are incarcerated, some that get our name from others, Church Under the Bridge and other organizations. And so we're constantly talking to potential students. So it can change at any moment in time. And sometimes it's not for everyone. And we do expect a lot. It is a discipleship program, voluntary discipleship program. And we expect a lot. And we look them in the face, and our students also vote on who comes in. And if there's problems, they vote on who goes out. We like to try to have a peaceful community in the home. Having a lot of females is a challenge, and we try to keep things calm.
That's fantastic. And whether it's 2 or 4, right? It's I think in modern times where technology allows us to see
Yes.
billionaires and trillion-dollar companies, we think in large numbers. But certainly, if our faith teaches us anything,
Yes.
one is important. And so if you're able to help one lady, in this case, more than one, really, and I really appreciate you mentioned the discipleship process. I know it looks like you have a program goes through 3
Yes.
phases, right? Ultimately, that foundations and elevation, destination, right? You're teaching them, you've got that foundations part, and share more, but what I saw was you have this immediate work you're doing to help them recover, heal, it looks like, and then you're teaching them life skills, and then you're helping them get on their own. Is that quick summary?
Yes,
Is that pretty
that
accurate?
if all goes well, if all goes
And
well, and there's no curveballs,
yes,
and they don't put up too much of a fight, then yes, it can go. It can go that easily. A lot of times, it's not quite as smooth sailing, because
sure.
people,
We're
me
people, right?
too. I'm in process as well, and part of that sanctification
Right.
process. But one thing we do try to stress is that we don't do drama. We're all serious, from myself to everybody involved with the
Hmm.
program, the board, our staff. We're all a team. We all talk to each other, and we don't take any drama. We're like low drama. So if you have any drama in your heart, or in your urges to have drama, get over it, because we don't get, and we're pretty serious about that. And we try to share that up front, just because sometimes that trouble and that distress that individuals might be in, they don't know how to step out of that and really operate outside of a crisis, and their
Hmm.
head and their heart are in two different directions. And so we try to just have a very
Right.
peaceful, it's very important to have peaceful, real, but calm waters around where we're going.
No doubt, and that takes work regardless, right? Like I said, part of our all of our discipleship process is learning to have
Yes.
healthy conflict, right? Where you're, like you said, you're trying to help them grow and mature and not just
Right.
live in that reaction space that is
Exactly.
unhealthy, right? Just the drama that doesn't the the friction that
Right.
doesn't lead to healing. And so it's great, and it's exciting that it's close by. So you're working with women in a variety of situations. One of the things that I think is great about that process is in our typical congregation, we want
Yes.
the lost and the hurting, but what we do on Sunday mornings or a Wednesday night Bible study is not enough. And even if your congregation has really great small groups, for those of us that are maybe not our best job, but we're working and we're paying the bills, and we have less of those struggles,
Yep.
those things can work really well. But if we're in a situation, right, you said coming out of incarceration, someone has been trafficked, which I can't even imagine what that would be like. Or they're in a place where they go, hey, I am addicted to whatever the substance is. I want help. Not, I want to change. Having a community that says, yes, we'll help you through that process is really valuable, and it's easy to overlook if you don't have, you don't need to have 100 ladies, or if it was a guy's facility, 100 guys. That if you say you graduated your first student, which is fantastic, right? If she continues down that path,
That's
that's
right.
generations that are changed. So that's fantastic. Without revealing anything that would be confidential, the intent for many of the students to stay in the area and stay connected in some way? Or because I can appreciate that if someone was incarcerated and you got connected to a local prison or jail, home might be somewhere else, right? So, but are these ladies, at least in the interim, intending to
Well,
stay in this area?
interestingly enough, most of them are in so far have been. We've had one that it was not from Texas, and she went back home. but the others have been from locations close by in Central Texas. And so our offer to them is to stay in contact as much as they want to stay in contact. So some of them are still in discipleship with us, and we have what we're going to do in 2025 is create with another ministry that's trained in biblical counseling wisdom groups, and that will be a more of a group setting. Most of our work is one-on-one, life on life, knee on knee kind of thing, where because it's pretty fast and deep, pretty fast and deep and on the onset. We've been wanting all along to bring in trained individuals to come alongside us in a more of an aftercare or follow-up kind of way, to where they either former students can come back to our site or to a designated location like a church and actually have a biblically based, trained facilitator to talk through life issues, but it not be one of those vomit sessions that are totally unproductive. And just, you know what I'm saying? Just it be where they know how to keep everybody on point and on task and on topic. But yet they can still see each other, and they have that likeness in either a program like ours or our program. So yes, that's the goal. I do a lot of texting and a lot of emailing, and we're available to them. And in fact, one of the things that we do, Bryan, is we serve in the community, and that's our community has given and already come alongside us so amazingly. But we like to try to share with them and teach and model giving back to the community. And so one of the things that we're doing this weekend is we're fixing lunch for a moving party for one of our friends who kept 2 children for one of our students so she could go through our program for 90 days. They kept they kept her 2 children for 90 days. And so I know, but this was totally like, it was on the fly. I mean, it was totally on the fly, which is ministry, totally. But I know this family very well, have known them for a long time, but they had a relationship with her prior to. And so they just moved into a new home. So I said, how can we serve you? How can we love on you guys? And I said, can we provide food for when you move? And she says, how about providing lunch for us when we have, like, we're going to have a moving party, wrap up our move. So we're going to do that for her, their family this Saturday with our students in our program, just serving their friends and their family as they get settled in their new homes. So that's one thing. And all of our students are great cooks, which has just been kind of amazing. We've been, taking notes of that, we're like, and so they love to cook, and that's kind of fitting into some future plans I have to create a cottage bakery, hopefully in Florence. I'm going to have to get a building, and I just have all these plans that the Lord's just kind of like, hey, what about this? But they love cooking and they love creating in that way. So I'm going to try to figure out a way where we can have something that maybe they can work in, create, but also maybe make some money for when they leave the program in that final stage, that destination stage. So lots of plans, house, buildings, bakeries, just lots of plans.
That's fantastic. And you may know this, right? In Texas anyways, and I realize you might want a separate place for people to come pick up things, but you may already know this, but in Texas, you can have, let's say they're baking, for discussion's sake, was pies, something that didn't have to be refrigerated. You can sell that without having to have a storefront. People can come pick them up, right? Yes. So you can do things pretty simply without having to invest a ton. But so there are a lot of entrepreneurial opportunities, and it's great that you all are thinking that way. Goodness, you could have a cookbook, right? Nowadays, you can make them digital. People can download and pay for it. All kinds of things that can come from that. But teaching them, what their natural passion may be, how to commercialize that, I think is fantastic. Paul was a tent maker. He was also one of the greatest evangelists to the Gentiles, but a tent maker, right? He had an occupation that allowed him to earn and share the gospel. And I think teaching life skills is one of the most valuable things. I'm a podcast junkie myself. So Rabbi Daniel Lapin would say one of the greatest forms of charity is teaching someone how to provide for themselves. Or if you have a business and they're employed in that business and you're helping them grow. So, not only helping those ladies get back up on their feet and getting all the things they
Right.
need just to heal, but then teaching them their natural God-given talents that can be commercialized is really uplifting. Because if they know, oh, whether they go, I don't know that I want to run a bakery, but I could
Absolutely.
work in one, right? They find their place and go, oh, I can go earn. So those are some of the most rewarding things because it gives us a self-confidence. We can go out and provide for our family or just themselves and whatever that may look like. But that's fantastic. What are some things that maybe people don't think about when it comes to the work you're doing or the help you need? And clearly people
Yes.
should pray, and giving resources is always,
Yes.
I'm sure, always helpful. You mentioned that you've had a donor that has the ability to help grow things, but what are some other things, again, we just might not think about, that typical person might not be aware of, that you've learned either from just being in the midst of this, or what things should we know that we wouldn't even think
Well,
about
those are
asking?
those are great questions, and we're still learning as we go as well, and try to keep that, again, that mindset, and stay humble. As I say, we say not just humble but flat, and you know keep so the Lord can lift us up and equip us. But I think one of the main things that we're finding right now, having done several events, fundraising events, is we are private
Hmm.
pay, and we do not bill insurance because I don't want them in our business. I'll just be a bottom line about it. Okay. My
Right.
background,
That makes
and
sense.
my husband, I was raised in residential care at a local children's home, and I know what it's like.
Okay.
And when the state gets in your business, the government gets in your business, and I'm not anti-government at any stretch, but we're private pay, so we do a lot of fundraising. We have an auxiliary that I formed last year for people to join. Just like we have all kinds of events that we need many hands and feet to help:
Okay.
graduations, birthdays, baptisms, you name it. I mean, we have our student scholarship tea in April. We need lots of people, men and women, to come alongside us. We're going to need men to come out and do,
Right.
and men and women too. I have a chainsaw. It's pink, but we have do chainsaw therapy at our new site. We're going to need to clear a lot of limbs. We just need more people to come alongside us as far as a volunteer pool. Now, our volunteers, they have to go through a background check. They have to abide by our volunteer
Right.
criteria, fill out a form, and they can pick and choose when they're involved. But there have been
Right.
so many times when we've called on some of our really core volunteer auxiliary members to help us with transportation. Like if she decides she doesn't want to do the program anymore, we need someone to take her to the airport. We need to make sure that person's approved to take her to the airport.
Right.
Some of our students need rides to medical appointments. Again, we have a vehicle that God provided for us last year, but we could
Nice.
use people to go to the food bank and pick up our lot, or our supplies, or go get supplies for us, medical appointments, dental appointments, all those things. You could just imagine how many, times six. There's a lot going on.
Right. So there's a lot of opportunity for someone who says, maybe, yep, certainly we'll pray for you, but
Mhm.
I'd like to do something else. And so there's opportunity of just being a driver, right? It makes sense, pass a background check, because if these ladies have been in a traumatic situation, it makes perfect sense. You want to
Mhm.
put safe people
Absolutely.
in their path, and that's just wisdom and makes sense. But so there's a lot of opportunity to be involved, maybe in very simple ways that don't require a lot of time commitment, some more than others. My guess is if you have people who say, I can volunteer many hours a week, great. But others that say, yeah, I could
Yes.
make that run to the food pantry. So lots of ways someone can be involved and make an impact that fit
Yep.
within their lifestyle. And I think after this too, I'll make sure that I get links to obviously I can share links to the website, but if there's other information, we'll work to share it with the people who will either listen to the podcast, see the video. We'll put that information out there. There's plenty of people in the area that are looking for ways to be involved, or just, again, not aware of operations like yours. And there are probably a number of this kind of thing where people are in their church and they're trying to make an impact in their community. And that's one of the things too, I hope, is more believers see, oh, well, here's what Dr. Wakefield and her team are doing. There's all kinds of different people working in the community to share the gospel, to really live out our faith, right? James talks about this, what we're supposed to do, right? Not just be a hearer, but be a doer, be out there working with, this the widows, the orphans, the incarcerated, right? And these women fall into some variation of that. Ultimately, someone who's been overlooked or hurt or had some significant challenge that needs the followers of Jesus to step in to say, okay, now you can be a doer. You've heard all the stuff we're supposed to do. Now you can put it into action. And you don't also have to be the live-in help that's on site. You could be, very simply, you could make once a quarter the run to the food pantry and be one of the folks on that list for the ladies you're working with, or the person who that is on their heart. Like, no, this is my passion. When you open up the next building, they want to be involved. So you have this wide range of ways people can be involved. And also, I hope, just to make your work aware to the other church communities in the area. My guess is that you're open to connections with all kinds of congregations. Is that fair to say?
And coming from a former church staff recently, that's where I was doing both for up until 2023. I was doing both, being the executive director of Restoration Ranch, Texas, and then also being on church staff as the women's director, which the Lord was finally like, you got to make a choice. And I'm like, I don't want to make a choice. I love both. But yes, my heart is for, given the training that the Lord has given to me and what I saw from the very beginning in 2012, but also what I know exists, pastors cannot do everything. And a lot of times, telling it like it is, they need people, individuals like myself, like Holly, our residential and program director. They need trained individuals to come in and tell them, particularly in women's issues. I found, how do we disciple? How do we start a discipleship ministry? How do we start a biblical counseling ministry to women? Or how would you approach this particular life-threatening situation? Have you heard of this? I've had that happen many times, but our heart is for the local church. And so, yes, Bryan, like-minded, biblically based nonprofits and churches, we are all for coming and just sharing with them what's out there, and really just sharing statistics with them. I mean, from my own work and dissertation, I found that really half of their congregation, if you want to just split it down the middle and say 50% of women, female congregants in their pews or their chairs, most of them are post-abortive. Now,
interesting.
How my own pastors, we were like, okay, how do we say this on Sanctity of Human Life Sunday? I mean, we were all for life. Yes, I am too. But you also need to remember that on Sanctity of Human Life Sunday, 40% of the women in the congregation have probably had an abortion, and they are going to cringe like crazy when you say, oh, yay, awesome. We love life. We love life from conception to the grave, and all that. And we are, all for adoption and foster care. And yeah, you get involved in everything, but you also have to say, however, if you have made a decision in your life where you have had an abortion and you need help, we're here for you. That's all you have to say. And so it just, I think helping ministers and people who serve others just know, is this common? Is cutting common? Is this common? How do you handle this? What do you recommend? And I'll say one final thing about it. The evangelical church needs to, and I'm just going to say this, they need to get back to the scriptures, where they see all of human condition through the lens of scripture and not some convoluted, secular, integrated perspective, because it doesn't help. And if they look deeper into where the origins of the secular psychological approach and the ideologies of all of that, it's very anti-Christian. And so part of my battle cry, or part of my intense sharing with them, is, look, you preach the Bible, you give the Bible, you're exegetical in every way and form, and you hold to that. Do it in every area, because all this other stuff, it's not helping. So, and that's part of my story, is just having been very psychologized up until I was in my early adulthood. And it was not until I turned to the scriptures that I began to truly receive and understand healing and who I really was and how that just healed my life. And it was a journey after that, I had to cooperate with it and
Sure.
apply it. But yeah, I when I heard the difference from former licensed psychiatrists and psychologists about how they just ditched their
Mhm.
license because they said, I don't believe any of that anymore. I'm truly biblical in
Right.
everything that I do. And we've just seen it work with the students that we have. And we get a lot of raised eyebrows. They're like, really? And we're like, yeah, really. It's again, we're not for everybody, but we're pretty convinced and confident and passionate about giving the pure word of God and letting that be the avenue of which they receive their healing in their life.
Well, and it's, I think, with in modern times, right? Yes, we're body and spirit, we tend to separate. In modern psychology, the little I know tends to totally disassociate the spiritual aspect of things. For instance, if someone commits a crime, a violent crime, we say they're mentally ill. And there might be some people who have some real serious, something that we say, yes, that is a distinct, that is different than choosing to do evil. But if I lose self control and murder someone, or if I plotted a murder and did a number of terrible things, it's not because that I didn't have enough serotonin or whatever, right? I can do truly wicked things and it's just wrong, right? And I think there's a healthy balance of, God gives us wisdom to understand how our mind and body works without, and being appreciative of learning those things, right? Modern technology, brain scans, all that goes into that, without saying, oh, yes, and we have a creator. And this is, these actions are not merely justifiable because I had a bad day or whatever the case may be. And to go back to your point about life affirming Sunday, this is something I've been thinking about now that I'm older. The more trips around the sun, right? I'm slow to mature. I'm maturing, but slow. So I wish I wasn't slow to mature. But I think for myself, all the the worst things I've done have been since coming to the Lord. Quite frankly, all my major sins have been since my childhood
Mm.
conversion as a teen when we came to the Lord. So all the worst things I've done have been since then. I wish it would all happen before I was 13. It was all since then. And to your point, though, about how many ladies in a congregation have probably had an abortion, probably many of those women that happened
Oh, yeah.
after coming to know the Lord. And I think, regardless of denomination, things of that nature are very important to bring up. Like, hey, yes, there
Yes.
is still forgiveness, right, for those who have come to know the Lord. And that, just that if you had either a teenage conversion or even in your early 20s, it's a process. We're not supposed to be living, correct me if I get off, but we're not supposed to be living in sin. But we're going to mess up, and people make
Right.
terrible choices, sinful choices, and to know, oh, there's still redemption. So I think the work that even those things you're doing, where it brings awareness to pastors, like, hey, think about this, because then I think that one of the results is then we don't talk about those things. Then you can have a body of
Right.
believers that is unhealthy. And then how are those folks even going to be comfortable enough to recommend, oh, hey, you're going through this, and I know in your situation, Susie, you need to go talk to Dr. Wakefield because her team, there's a
Yeah.
place where you can recover, because you're going to need more than what my family can do. I don't have either the space, or I know I'm not set up to, my temperament is not to serve you in that way, but I can recommend, I can introduce you to someone who
Exactly.
could potentially. Those interactions, I think, are very valuable. Just people being aware of those things is I'm sure super helpful. Is there anything else that people might just, maybe they don't think about, that you would like them to know about your operation, or ways to be involved other than the ones you've
I
shared?
think, other than the volunteerism, I mean, we're going to be developing more probably. Prayer is always one thing that we ask for. If they want to be
Right.
involved and just read about what's going on, we're going to try to keep everybody, attached and connected through what's happening through our newsletter. So if they want to get on our website and just sign up or subscribe or just send an email to the address that's on there about keeping in touch or just finding out what's going on or listening or reading about what's going on, We also have a sponsor, a student. So if they would like to come to one of our, where I created the scholarship tea in particular for all those funds for women that about 70% of our students that come and take advantage of our program, they do not have funds. We try not to turn away someone that's extremely serious about moving forward in Christ and in healing the way that he tells us to. So that's been about 70%. And so we try this event in April. Any ladies, it's just for ladies, but this time we're not asking the guys to come, but it's our Restoration Ranch, Texas student scholarship tea. It's at a beautiful venue at Woodbine Mansion in Round Rock. Downtown, online at our website. It's per person ticket, and it's just going to be a lot of fun, and we're just going to raise funds for students, the next students that are coming. And so that's one way. Again, just getting involved with the auxiliary, praying for us, and we just appreciate it so much. Anybody that wants to hear and to know more about us, we're happy to share.
Fantastic. Well, as the scholarship tea approaches, we'll make sure in our little circle we share that as well. And it's great that I like that approach. There's scholarships so that you're allowing people to invest into the future, and that's fantastic. And as you develop those entrepreneurial endeavors, that's fantastic, whether it's baking or whatever it is. So as that information comes out, we'll be certain to cheerlead and encourage people to, if it's baking, to pick up goods there, or whatever you end up doing. That's fantastic. Yes. Well, thank you, Dr. Wakefield. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
This is just wonderful. And I just appreciate you. And, just we'll keep you posted and if it's okay, I'll put you onto our newsletter, and just, you can see what's coming out. And we're going to be announcing about the new house. And, we're probably going to have a big open house, probably at the end of the year, probably towards Christmas. And would love for you to come out and see the place. It's going to be gorgeous. So I'm just like, my mind is blown.